My name is Grandy, and I'm the Energy Transition Officer here at the EFCL. So I run the Green Leagues program, which is basically a program delivered by the EFCL to help community leagues become energy efficient and solar and get solar powers in order to inspire their communities. So anything that you want to do in your communities, we hope to help you achieve that. So just kind of as a resource, and to do that, we offer workshops, energy audits, if that's something you're interested in, network of ambassadors, connecting you with the people that you need to know in order to get the things that you're hoping to get done, as well as myself as a personal resource. If you need anything, pick up the phone and call me, kind of deal. So that's kind of what the Green Leagues and myself personally is all about. So as a part of the workshop, I guess I should, to make sure that this happens, we have the City of Edmonton, the EFCL, Riverdale Community League, and Evansdale Community League all came together to make this happen. They saw a gap. They saw how the EFCL could better help the community leagues, and this great program is how that came out of that. Sponsored by the city and the province of Alberta. We have two consultants that we work with regularly for energy audits. We have Generate Energy and SPICE, Solar Power Investment Cooperative of Edmonton, on the solar side of things. So they are kind of our go-to experts on these things. And just to talk a little bit about the workshops, you guys already obviously know about the first one. The series consists of 3 other ones, which will happen consecutively for the next 3 weeks. Energy efficiency, solar panels, and then kind of how to fund those projects, how to make them really go on to not just how to do them, but then how to fund them and make sure that they actually happen in your communities. So we really recommend that you come to all of them. They're kind of set up that way. However, you don't have to. If there's one that speaks to you more than some of the other ones, that's totally okay as well. However, if you do come to all of them, people who do come to all of them are officially energy transition ambassadors through the Green Leagues program, and that just means that you've attended all of these sessions, you're knowledgeable, you're armed with the knowledge in order to go into your communities and make a difference, that you know you can speak to these issues to your community. And that's the group from last year. Yes. Yep. Probably see some other familiar faces. So in terms of today, we just kind of did the introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about climate change in general and the why. I'm sure you guys are, again, preaching to the choir, I'm sure you guys already know, and that's kind of why you're here, but just to, specify on Edmonton a little farther in terms of the data. Then we're going to hear from Rocky from Riverdale, who's going to talk about, I'm going to take the super wide view, and she's going to take it down right to the grassroots, right to the bottom, to talk about kind of her story and how it started and how it all came to be. And then we're going to hear from Robyn, who's going to talk to you a little bit about how you can then take those things and turn them into something for your own communities. And this is just kind of, you heard about me already. Rocky's talked a little bit about being the sustainability director at Riverdale. And then Robyn Webb, who we didn't actually hear from, I don't think.
No,
Go for it.
My name's Robyn Webb. I'm part of the energy transition team at the City of Edmonton. And Rocky and I are 2 of the founding members of this program. So last year, it was the city that were actually delivering these workshops in partnership with the EFCL, but this year we were able to get some funding to hire Charlotte, so we're really excited to have more partners and more people being able to expand the scope of the program. So I'll be talking a little bit today and then at the last workshop on funding as well too.
Yeah, and that's the presenters. So now moving right on into kind of the why. Why you guys already know kind of why you're here, but just on kind of a bigger scale, why does it all matter? In terms of global climate change is something that's been talked about a lot. There's lots of scientific data backing up all of these claims, also from historic data, but also moving forward, making estimates about kind of what's going to happen in the future with varying degrees of risk and what we as people can do about it. So these are all things that I'm sure you have heard before: melting polar ice caps, extreme weather events, rising sea levels. I'm sure you've seen the picture of the polar bear, which is necessary. These are all bigger changes that are happening. Although I don't know how many of you are like me, I always question, how does this relate to me? Like the rising sea level here in Edmonton, really, doesn't matter to me. I mean, it matters, but it matters in kind of a theoretical, it matters. But so to me, that's what I try to do, is then bring it down to kind of the more local view. And this summer in particular, it's been kind of hard to ignore, especially the extreme weather events from the four hurricanes that we saw in the U.S., which really battered them, to even here in Edmonton, the Waterton fires that destroyed 30% of their national park, and the fires that were in BC and caused Edmonton to have covered in smoke. That's something that really does affect me. It affects my recreation. I can't go camping and can't light a fire, and the smog, affects my day-to-day life. I can't bike anywhere because the smog just gets in my lungs. And these are kind of the stories that really speak more to me, and I'm sure to everyone. But these are still examples of the extreme once off. What happens, we raise a bunch of money to support the victims of Hurricane Harvey, and then what happens, right? So I found this really cool website, which is focused here on Edmonton, and it just it looks back on historical data and looks at more of the specifics of what are the smaller changes that are happening here. And I find it crazy interesting. But the square that you're looking at, we're in that square, which is why I picked it. We're right here, right there. And so, and this slide specifically shows that the mean temperature has risen 2 degrees here in Edmonton, right since the 50s. So right where we're standing, it's already warmed for 2 degrees, which, I wouldn't have noticed. I wasn't around in the 50s, but it still is something crazy to recognize. Yes. But the website also covers things like the growing season length. So it's increased by 2 weeks since the 50s. And frost days, these are just a couple that I've pulled out because I found them interesting. We have 5 days less of frost days here in Edmonton than we did in the 50s. And these are things that, they're not big and extreme, and there's no, big events that happened or affected me. But these are things that we can notice. These are things that are happening in Edmonton and presumably will continue to happen in the same kind of curve. And if you guys want to play around with the website, the nerd in me finds it really, really exciting just to have this data in a graphical form and to have it available in terms of the actual what the temperatures have been and could be, and you can extrapolate what they could be from going forward.
What's the name of the school?
This is the University of Lethbridge. I have the website here actually. It is called Alberta Climate Records. So you can see they do it for the whole province, and then you can just zoom in on a particular area. You could probably zoom in right to your house if you really wanted that kind of data. Oop, from the beginning. Damn it. Sorry about that, guys. So there are changes that are less dramatic that are continuing to happen, and that will continue to affect us and presumably only get worse. But then, so what does that kind of mean? I showed you kind of snapshots of what that means. From the International Panel on Climate Change, one of their research projects was on effects to different areas. In terms of North America, what we can anticipate is more precipitation in the summer, more heat events, reduced soil moisture, and more droughts in the summertime specifically. And then in the winter, we'll see kind of the same, less frost days, less snow on the ground, and an earlier snow melt. So with these changes that can occur, what can we expect? How does that even affect me? Again, it's the how does it affect me? Maybe I'm selfish in this way, but I feel as though it's kind of the way humans think. What does this mean for my life? This is this is another snapshot from that, and I found it kind of interesting and to see kind of how they're thinking. Where are the yellow boxes? So atmospheric warming, that big topic that I talked about at the beginning, that just, the atmosphere is warming. It means that there's going to be an increase in pests, which will affect me. I don't like bugs as much as the next person, right? There will also be an increase in tree mortality, less trees. Harder for trees to survive. Again, that directly affects me. I love the river valley, and I can imagine it without trees and what that will mean. So in terms of a community league, what will that mean? Less skating. That's what community leagues love to do. Most of them have skating rinks that are used for as long as possible. Increased cost of food and less variety in farmers markets or less farmers markets. It's hard for farmers markets and things like that if the growing season changes dramatically. If we can't grow the things that we normally do, how will that affect the farmers markets that you go to every Saturday, right? Anyone who pays insurance will presumably pay more from those severe storms or disruptions, and how that affects everybody, regardless of where you are. And then, like I said, less trees. Can't imagine a city without trees. But not to be discouraged by those things. As the community leagues, I did some research into what can a community do. And 3 things that came out of that research. In order to fully harness the power of a community, you need a shared vision, social action and civic engagement, and social capital. And here in Edmonton, we have a huge boost up because the second 2 are already covered. That's what a community league is a place where social capital, where a group of people within a community can gather, share their experiences and what they know, in order to entice social action and civic engagement, whether that's building a playground, reducing the speed on your street, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what a community league is. So that in order to apply that to this environmental, big topic and big picture world, it's just a shared vision that we're just missing. It's that final piece to gather people together to have the same vision, to move it forward, and to encourage people to move forward. So on that note, I want to hand it over to Rocky, who's going to talk about her shared vision and what she did in Riverdale in order to not only bring that vision together, but then to see through that vision and make it happen for her community.
And I just click to advance, eh?
Yep.
Okay. So, does anybody with some sort of verbal skills want to help me with the metaphor here? Would it put undue pressure on you if I told you that I ran it by a 7th grader and they came up with a beautiful metaphor for me? Very well, we can always come back to this. Somebody asked me why I am committed to this program, and so I did. This is sort of the hulkiest part of this quick presentation and the most personal, but I did just want to say once and for all why I'm here. I think that leagues are really in the perfect position to lead sustainability in our city, and I think it's because we're small and we're nimble, And we're also excellent at community engagement, like Charlotte said. So I think that people acting out of love for their communities and their neighbors can really lead a lot easier and model where less intimate cities and nations, less nimble cities and nations, less loving cities and nations maybe can't. And so I think we can do a lot of good. Also, when you consider a collective impact of 157 leagues over the city, spread over the city, I think we can do great good, and even more good than huge organizations like, say, a multinational. A multinational can do a lot of good when, say, they decide to install a huge solar farm. But I don't think in the long run they can do as much good as, say, a community member who goes and borrows a push mower from their lending library and then volunteers to help a sick neighbor mow their native grass meadow. So I really think that it's collaboration for the common good that can really bring us towards safer, more caring, healthier communities. And so, yeah, I think it's at the local level that we can really consider the real costs and the real benefits of our day-to-day actions. So I'm super committed to this program. And again, this is the wordiest part of this presentation, and then it's quite quick and pictorial. But I just wanted to read something from Abundant Communities by John McKnight and Peter Block, because that's also a big initiative in the city of Edmonton, Abundant Communities, and it really validates sort of my feeling about why I'm engaged in this program. So the future of Earth and the environment is a major local responsibility. The energy problem is our local domain because how we transport ourselves, how we heat and light our homes, and how much waste we create are major factors in saving our Earth. In our neighborhoods, we have the power to build a resilient economy, one less dependent on mega systems of finance and production that have proved so unreliable. Most enterprise begins locally. As families and neighbors, we have the power to nurture and support these businesses so that they have a viable market. We are coming to see that we have a profound local responsibility for the food we eat. We must learn that our neighborhoods are the source of abundance and security. So I really think the Green Leagues program has already had great success, and as we engage more people, we're going to have more successes. And together we'll learn about the health, economic, and community benefits that accrue from burning less carbon and caring more about each other and our environment. So at the same time, we'll come to recognize the abundance of our own communities and build sustainable communities. So I don't know if that even helps you, Reg, in terms of, we didn't mention climate change once. So from my and I don't know, is it climate change that loses people? I'm not sure, but whatever. Maybe we can talk about that one. So I'm not here because we're exemplars in Riverdale of what to do or exemplars of what not to do, hopefully, but just because we've had experience and, like I said, I want to create that culture of sharing. So were I to give advice based on my experience to date, I would say these things up here on the slide. I'd say just get started and fail forward. I think even if somebody came down with a perfect plan for sustainability to your community, no one would really read it or engage around it anyway. So I don't think we're looking for perfection and a great roadmap forward. We're just looking to get started. And so I just encourage you to be bold and get started. And if you're feeling it all stuck, my operating style is just to follow the leaders, so I would suggest just follow the leaders, look for what people are already doing in your community, and give them a shout out or ask if you can get involved or if you can help boost and augment what is already being done, and maybe poach a few members for your sustainability team while you're at it. And I would say a lesson learned is to create a big vision. So I'm glad that, Charlotte, in your introduction you talk about it's good to have a common vision. So I think that's really important to work with your community and spend time visioning and coming up with a common vision that can be articulated in a way that can create as much buy-in as possible, and then break it into really small and practical steps. And I'll try to sort of illustrate that lesson learned in the next slide. And also expect that there's going to be a lot of interest, like in Riverdale, the sustainability team. I just put out a call. Like, we had a small team, and then I thought, well, maybe we need to build our team. It might help us, even from a mercenary perspective, to get motions through the league if we have more buy-in going forward with motions and that kind of thing. So we built a larger team, and we had to limit it at 12 because we just found if we went any bigger, it might get awkward. So expect a lot of interest, but also, sometimes the follow-through is a little weak. So again, if follow-through is weak, maybe just to remember to break it down into smaller steps and keep going. So, I forgot one thing from that last slide. It is on slide number 20, and we will be there shortly, but it's on slide number 20 where I give the real pearl, where I summarize the real golden advice. So pay attention to slide 20. So Riverdale Community League, this is not really the beginning of our sustainability story, but it's where I sort of had my first Eureka lesson learned, and that is to find that big vision and then break it down into small steps. So one thing that really helped us was that we had an audit done by C Returns, and they encouraged us to sit down with the community and think about how far we wanted to go with our energy efficiency as a group. And then we could just chip away at things over time. So, I remember the day well when we had a motion to go carbon neutral, and it was supported in Riverdale unanimously. So that was super helpful to have that overarching vision and then a plan to work towards it in steps. So we just broke it down. We're going to buy our way there, and then we'll slowly work on the carbon neutral arm of the report. That was in 2000. I think it was in 2007, and then so the idea was to be carbon neutral by 2008, but we knew that would be easy because there were some simple recommendations. They were called the no-cost, low-cost recommendations, and they were just things like changing light bulbs. Yeah, and then we were just going to buy our way to carbon neutrality through offsets. So it was pretty easy to do. And so what good came out of it? Well, we, instantly started having a more comfortable hall. We instantly started saving money. We discovered the capacity in our community. Like, who knew we had a 5-year-old that was an electrician? And, we partied, we had pizza and had a good time. And we validated things for the community and for people by trying to shout out the process and let people know about what we were doing. So, it wasn't really a big deal. It was mostly on paper deal. We were just buying our way to carbon neutrality, but we put out a catchy hook did a catchy hook press release and said, how many Riverdalians does it take to change a light bulb? And then talked about our carbon neutral ambitions, and the journal took the hook and covered it, and that had a nice ripple effect. Like, from that, Mike Walters, who's one of our ward councilors now, he was at Aspen Gardens at the time, and he read that, and that sort of led to some of the early sort of Green League challenges. So over time, then, we just chipped away sort of opportunistically at different energy efficiency retrofits in our community. We did LED lighting around our rink. That was an easy win because there's some super energy hogs around most rinks. And then the Green Leagues program had a solar program that we took advantage of, and we just put in that small solar system there. And then, there were a lot of different, like, when you talk about energy efficiency and sustainability and solar, there's so many things that come in under that, like local food and local transportation. So there's so many things that come under that umbrella of energy efficiency. So anything that anybody was interested in, we just tried to sort of rally around. So somebody was good at making magnets. They put together that little magnet you see there. There were people, a lot of food people in our community that wanted to do a community garden and so forth. And then just to share some of our early maybe things that didn't work out quite so well, we had a sustainability series, and we brought in great speakers. They were fairly well attended, like usually about 20, 25 people at each event. We had like Peter Amarangan speaking about net zero homes. We even had Andrew Nikiforik come in, and but I would say that in terms of engaging people for action, it wasn't maybe the greatest because we didn't. I think our lesson learned would be to break it down into simple, concrete steps for people. So if we were to do it again, I think we'd combine, say, a talk with, then we'd be ready to launch some, we might have an energy efficiency person come in and talk, but then right after that we'd have a program to connect people to city and provincial programs where they could do their own retrofits and that kind of thing. So, yeah. Another thing we did is somebody was interested, there's somebody in the community that is very interested in boosting local business. So they suggested that we try to give Pogo a boost and expand them down into Riverdale. So we invited Pogo to a solar fair where we had different sort of solar businesses and things come, and they signed people up, and we expanded Pogo into the community. Pogo is a car share program in Edmonton. And yeah, so that sort of makes me think, we don't really know. We know Pogo's in Riverdale. What effect has that had on car ownership, and has that gotten us anywhere in terms of sustainability? We don't really know. I find that's one challenge, is how do you get data and how do you share it in terms of how effective you're really being? And that's something that Riverdale is really trying to focus on now. So, we're getting towards our carbon neutral goal, but we're still buying offsets. We've done our triple pane windows, we've done our on-demand furnace, we've done our LED lighting, all those kind of things, but we're still short of our carbon neutral goals. So, again, operating opportunistically, there was an Eco-City grant available, and so we applied for that grant, and it was to complete our way to carbon neutrality and to finish up with solar. And so what we did is we started, thinking about our needs. We knew that we couldn't put more solar on the roofs because we didn't have any more space, but we noticed that there were a lot of structures at other leagues that that were nice in terms of sheltering from shade, from the sun and giving you shade, but they didn't recognize other opportunities that we felt could be recognized, like collecting, harvesting water, and doing solar. So, we also had a need in Riverdale for a place to stage events. Like, we have a lot of weddings and we have a lot of outdoor concerts and things. So we worked with the Solar Energy Society, and we worked with Dandelion Renewables and envisioned this really what it is a solar carport. So we just rethought it to be more of a shelter and a place to stage events. And so it's prefabricated, ready to go, and extremely durable. No wooden parts. It looks like wood there, but it's not. It's just all metal. So it's a done deal now. We still plan to finish it up with some design. We've gotten feedback from musicians that have used it, and we've gotten feedback from the community garden that's right next door, and we want to do some landscaping, like grapevines and things, to add to the food vibe in Riverdale, and we want to add some more canvas to the sides that can roll up and down so that the electrical equipment is better protected, but it's already turned into a really well-loved and well-used space. And there it is, an 8.7 kilowatt system. So we got an Eco-City grant to do that. I would think that if you applied for an Eco-City grant to do this, again, you wouldn't get it, that you'd really have to be a bit bolder, like maybe think of some electric bike charging stations or some other sort of engagement, sort of take it to the next level. Maybe think of a affordable house with solar or something. I don't know what it would take, but I would guess that you probably wouldn't get an Eco-City grant if you tried this one again. But the other good news on this, which just speaks to alignments and how easy this has gotten, is that we got a $7,000 rebate from the Alberta Municipal Solar Program. So there are a lot of programs that are running right now to really help with any of your sustainability efforts. So we'll talk about that. One of the alignments is that the city of Edmonton has an energy transition strategy, and I think, Charlotte talked about having a common framework or a common vision or a common goal, and so I think if you can help your community understand the energy transition strategy, that's going to be a helpful thing. We did a survey of Riverdalians and asked how many people knew about the energy transition strategy, and less than half the community knew, but I was pretty impressed. It was 48%. So maybe it was a pretty, yeah.
I think that's very impressive.
Yeah. So, whenever I'm talking about the energy transition strategy, I try to break it down to these 3 simple things: that every individual has to lower their carbon footprint by 25%. We need more energy produced within the city, and in general, we need to reduce our carbon. And and again, this is all validated speaking points, like the International Panel on Climate Change tells us that the quicker and deeper we go, the cheaper and easier it's going to be. So, I think in Riverdale, we're focusing on that 25% reduction. So this is a frame that the city uses, so we're trying to really boost that frame within the city. And that way it's super easy to take advantage of all the alignments that exist right now. So again, speaking to those alignments, there's, for example, in the city of Edmonton, a Spot the Difference program, and there's resources over there that speak to that Spot the Difference program, and I'm sure Robyn will be talking about it. But
so don't worry, any of the grants Rocky's talked about, we're going to go very in-depth.
Okay, awesome.
So you guys will know all about them.
Well, then maybe this is an advertisement for come to all the 4 sessions.
It's perfect.
Yeah, and okay. Also, there's a lot of Alberta programs right now. So there's rebates for your community league solar. There's rebates for each individual household solar. So if maybe your league isn't ready to do solar at the league level, or it's going to be difficult for you to get motions through the league, or the league doesn't have any money, or the league doesn't understand the need, you might just focus on trying to get every individual in the community to consider solar on their roofs. So I just want to say the City of Edmonton's website is amazing. So I actually put a link in here. So here's a picture of the website. You can see all the different categories. But if you go to this website, you could, it's better than going to David Suzuki's website. It's just, and it's all in the Edmonton context. It's quite amazing. You'll just recognize, looking here at the Edmonton's website, how many initiatives there are right now that are well aligned with anything you might do in your community in terms of energy efficiency. There's home programs, league programs, there's provincial programs. So if you hit any one of these links, and it just goes into a deeper dive, and then there's all kinds of stuff that you could share with your league, like, rather than have to write your own article, rather than have to create your own video, rather than have to do your own anything, just, cut and paste. That's, so I'd say, to summarize my strategy so far, it's follow the leaders, be opportunistic, cut and paste. Yeah. So, okay, how do I get out of there and back to the presentation now? Just close this?
Just go there, yeah.
Ah. Okay, awesome. So, so you know that the Alberta government has a no-cost, low-cost home energy program. So in Riverdale, what we did is we just started putting articles in our community newsletter. So we try to get something in there from the sustainability team as often as we can. Like, here's an example of our newsletter, and we've got somebody's solar system on there, and so we always try to shout out things that people are doing in the community. And we've got here a passive solar monitor, air monitor that was installed. So what we did is we put an article about sort of a bathroom sex 101 article in our newsletter, and we also just posted it on our social media. And when the fellow from the Alberta Energy Efficiency Program came to Riverdale, he said that there was like 4 times the uptake in Riverdale that there was in other communities. So we don't have a way, again, to validate that. We've talked to their communications people and everybody, and they can't bring it down to the neighborhood level. So if anybody can figure out how to get data on the neighborhood level, let us know, because that's something we'd really like to know, how much we can, brag about our efforts, or whether there's really other things that we could attribute this success to.
The installer's coming to my house tomorrow, and he's not going to have much to do. They've done a lot over it. But anyway, when they called to set up the appointment, they asked for my postal code. You can get lots of data for breaking down the postal code.
Okay.
Well, it depends on whether it is true for but it's true postal code data is. Yeah. You know what it is, roughly, there's a third party that's implementing the program. We'll help you get the
Okay. Well, it would be very cool, because, man, you...
the level where everyone's privacy is all,
Yeah. Well, and these programs are super neat. Once... it changes the conversation. I mean, now when you get together with people in Riverdale, they start talking about low-flow faucets and stuff. I mean, it's kind of nerdy, but it's super cool. Like, who knew? If you just look at the little low-flow faucet, it's got a little number on it, and that's gallons per minute, and it's fascinating. And so, yeah, I had this guy in my bathroom. Pretty cool, hey? Like, I had to find him on the internet, but I know a lot of people do that these days. So,
sorry, I have to represent someone.
Cool, thanks.
I will see you guys again at the other event.
Great.
Sorry, I will also have to take that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, tell me if he says that. Oh, you guys have 4 times the uptake of the other communities, because it could just be something they say to get you all excited. But we're also, in our newsletters, we're asking people to let us know. So some people have let us know when they've gotten the audit done. But a lot of people that I know have had the audit don't let us know. So, yeah, and so the EnerGuide for Home program, there's 2 people in Riverdale. Now, Riverdale is right here on the map. Can you see the pointer one? I can't look behind me, but can you see where Riverdale is? Yeah, so you don't see anybody on that map. But evidently there's houses in the hopper that are going to be evaluated. So this program, there's a photographer in Riverdale who's committed to doing he's going to document the process and let other people in the community know about it. And we're trying to get the word out through our social media. And yeah, we always try to remember, every event you do, make sure you've got a photographer there and make sure you communicate it. And so, yeah, it's great to build your team, get communications people, get artists, get business people involved. So we're really trying to boost this program because you get $400 back when you get your audit done, and the 3 companies that are doing it charge between $650 and $400. So, they're all different and they all have unique value, but yeah, basically it's a free program. You're going to pay for the GST on the one provider. And then once you have your audit done, you focus on doing your energy efficiency upgrades. So if we can really boost this program in Riverdale, we think that will be awesome, because then people will be more motivated to get their energy efficiency down by 25%. So that's something we're hugely trying to push. And then in Riverdale, we also are excited that we are the first community league to get a passive air monitor. And I don't know if this, again, Reg, helps with the communication part, but we're trying to communicate some of our energy efficiency as a clean air initiative. So we've intentionally put this monitor by our 2 solar systems so that people maybe get the connection, clean energy, clean air. And yeah, so we're really trying to help people connect the dots between all these community initiatives.
And we at the city also bought a whole bunch of air quality monitors that we can take through the library.
Oh, right.
And so as you have it for the week or whatever you have it out, it just crowdsources all of your information to the cloud. And so we're collecting all of this air quality data for Edmonton that's way, way more granular than what we used to get before, which was just from the 2 monitoring stations. So I think there's a long lineup for them right now, so get your name on the list if you're interested. How did you guys get this one, though?
But from the Alberta Capital Airshed, we just let them know that we would be quite interested in helping, particularly because we're in the valley. So what is the air quality going to be down low in the valley? So we got it for free. They'll do all the monitoring, and they'll give us that we can link to their data on our new engaging on our new Riverdale sustainability website. Yay! We're just doing SOx and NOx. So yeah, oxides of sulfur and nitrogen, and yeah.
I think the city ones are mostly particulate matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is good to capture because you're not going to matter.
Yes. Yeah. And hopefully, it sounds like there's overlapping things happening, which is good too.
Yeah, this is just a slide to say do not forget, I was going to say to engage youth, and I should take that back because do not forget that youth are going to engage your community. So kids really get a community to rally around something. Kids can deliver a message a lot easier. Yeah, it doesn't seem partisan when a kid's delivering the message. It seems a little more authentic when a kid's delivering the message. So I had the fun of working with these kids on an anti-idling campaign in Riverdale, and they won an Emerald Award. And, they had the mayor, running around after them and trying to capitalize on them. They had Rona Ambrose. They had, CBC. They were like complete media sluts. And yeah, they're incredible. So, yeah, don't forget to, it's a challenge. Find it if it's happening and get behind it. But another way to engage it is that, because these kids won an Emerald Award, we know the Emerald Awards pretty well in Riverdale, and there is an Emerald Youth Grant for just $500 that's super easy. It's just a little form that says, well, we want to build a bee garden or something, and we're homeschoolers in Riverdale, and that's all you need to do, and you get $400, and then if you take a picture of it and write a short article about it at the end, you get the other 100. So if you want to be mercenary again, co-op the kids and get them to apply for the money and get them to deliver the messages. Do I sound evil? I hope not, but anyway.
They look pretty happy.
Yeah. And, okay, so I just put this in because this party happened last weekend in Riverdale, and I thought it was kind of neat. I guess it just speaks to the fact that it is getting easier, it's getting fun, and it is sort of an abundance thing and a joy thing that there was a party in Riverdale, and it was a green theme party, so they had, the guy has just finished installing solar on his roof, and he has an electric leaf, so he had, green drinks, and he had music, and there was that sunshine list there. This is his inverter, and on it he has a list of songs with sunshine in it. And they had a draw for a leaf, which was a little model car. And here he is in the garage showing off his inverter. And so it was just a party, food, beer, wine, and people were having usual conversations. But there were also those conversations around energy efficiency and electric cars and solar, so it was pretty fun. And so it also sort of speaks to just finding the abundance in your own community and the capacity in your own community, and that, it creates safer, cleaner, more fun communities, and, it's a fun thing. And so this is the last of two slides, I think. In Riverdale, we've worked again on visioning with HubScale, so they came in from the outside and helped us as a community envision what we wanted to do sustainability-wise to sort of help guide the sustainability committee, and that's been helpful because, again, it helps to have that common vision. And we've also been working with a guy named Mark Kabaj to think about how we work and how we might work most effectively and how we can evaluate what we're doing and whether it's having any impact or whether we can really take the credit for the impact that we do have, or how can we best leverage off city and government programs and that kind of thing. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing is in Riverdale we want to operate as we well, we haven't decided to do this, but we're considering that we're going to be sort of like a friendly dragon's den. So the sustainability team will invite people into our sustainability dragon's den to sort of pitch their sustainability programs. So people will come to us with their interests, and then we will help them, think about grants. We'll help them think about how we can help boost how we can help them get done what they want to do. And we have a website that's up, but it's still a work in progress. And so we're trying to really create our identity. We've got a historian in Riverdale that put together a 16-page history of sustainability so that we can really show that this is a tried and true tradition for our community to be sustainable. And we've got links to all kinds of different initiatives like River Valley cleanups, and then our solar program and how much energy we're generating. And we want to have a map of all the solar, house rooftop solar that goes in. And we also are working on a community directory so that we're starting to work with abundant communities, but we're that process of creating a community directory for abundant communities is probably a bit far away, so we want to get going on that to create a bit of a directory so that people can find each other that have similar sustainability goals and interests, or just so you can find a local plumber or electrician and that kind of thing. And so this is slide number 20. I told you this is the slide where I give you the real pearl. This is the OneStop Shop. So, my experience now would be to just call Charlotte. So, run it by somebody that's in the center of it all and knows what all the provincial resources are and knows what all the City of Edmonton resources are and knows, she's talking to all the leagues, so she can hook you up and help you with the networking. So thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
My name's Robyn Webb. I work for the City of Edmonton as part of the energy transition team. So we're the group at the City of Edmonton that's interested in trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, not only in the city in our own operations and how we operate rec centers and build roads, but also in working with the larger community to also do these things in your neighborhoods and in your homes. So my job mostly focuses on these programs that work with communities. So I run grant programs. Like I said, Rocky and I helped start this Green Leagues program because we thought, again, who better to undertake some of these sustainability initiatives than community leagues, and to set sort of a positive role and a positive tone for the different things that can be done in your neighborhood. So my presentation is going to sort of take a lot of the things that Rocky talked about and just talk a little bit more about how you get there again, and about making plans and actually getting some of that sustainability stuff actually ensconced in your actual plans for your community league. But also we're going to give you guys a little bit of time to talk about what some of the challenges are in your neighborhoods or with your leagues and your buildings, and what you might need help with too, because that gives us, as a group of people who are supporting the program, a really good sense of what we can do in the future to help make your project successful. So again, Rocky touched on this, but again, this is the city's climate change goal. This aligns with all of the Paris commitments, if you're curious too. So cities have been really integrally engaged in trying to push some of the national climate change goals. And so most of the major Canadian cities all have goals that align with the Paris commitment too. How are we doing? The last inventory that we have of emissions in Edmonton was actually in 2014, but you can see we're starting to trend down a little bit, which is good, because that wasn't the case for many years. But in case you're curious, the little pie chart actually shows us where our emissions actually come from within Edmonton. So transportation accounts for about 42% of our emissions. Industry is about 16%, and buildings, both residential and commercial, are just over 40%. So part of the reason in the Green Leagues program we've decided to focus on trying to get some initiatives started with buildings, you can see right here, because they're such a huge part of the emissions. I've put this slide in here not to depress us, but this is our reality too. So these are the emissions per capita, so per resident for each of the provinces across Canada. And if you look, the very, very tall one is ours here in Alberta. Our emissions far outstrip the other provinces by quite a bit. Then the next biggest numbers are Ontario. But you can see the blue bars are the 2015 numbers. So Alberta as a whole is trending up, while other provinces like Ontario that also had a lot of emissions, because like us, they have a lot of industry. So industry is an integral part of what gets us to this really high number, but it's also our electricity grid that is currently coal-powered in Alberta that really makes us sort of stand up this much. So again, not to depress us, but it just means there are lots of different initiatives that we can undertake here that haven't already been done. So again, back to that idea of why should community leagues engage in sustainability? David Dodge from Evansdale Community League, who you guys will hear at the last session, and Rocky and I had a lot of discussions about this. Why was it that their leagues actually decided to engage in some of these programs? And I think, in the end, David said his league was really interested in being a leader, and they felt like they wanted to join a movement that was happening across the globe around sustainability. But they were also interested in the clean energy economy and whether or not they could impact the creation of new jobs. But again, community leagues have influence in their neighborhoods too. So for people who are really passionate about sustainability, a lot of them picked their league because they saw it as a place where they could actually influence some of the things that happened in their larger neighborhood. Rocky touched on this well, to improve air quality. Here in Edmonton, our air quality is really pretty good most of the time, but we do have a challenge with particulate matter. And so that's why we as the city, I was saying, we put out that program where you can get the air quality monitors from the library. We're trying to make people a bit more aware of where some of the emissions might come from in their own communities. So if you take that around and you notice when you go and look at your computer after that there's a bit of a hot spot, it might cause you to actually think, well, what was it in the neighborhood that started that? For instance, when we were testing them, one of the testers, when he got back in, he couldn't figure out what downtown had caused such a big sort of blip, and he went by a parkade, and it was during morning rush hour, so it was all the people in the parkade that were getting into their parking spots, and it had rather poor air quality. So again, it just starts to give people a bit of an education and to think about where emissions are coming from and the impact that has on the air that they breathe every day. And again, obviously to combat climate change.
Yeah, when you take that out of the library, is it pretty self-explanatory?
Yeah, it has a nice little instruction booklet with it that tells people how to use it and how you sync it up with your phone so that you're actually getting that data up to the cloud. We haven't had any feedback of people not being able to figure it out yet, so hopefully everything's going smoothly. I think it might only be Android compatible, unfortunately. But the company said they were working on trying to make it compatible with iPhone, so I'm not sure if they've gotten there yet or not. But again, what's in it for leagues beyond the people who are interested in doing this because they're concerned about climate change? We did a little bit of analysis looking at some of the energy bills of leagues, and we figured that if a league undertook a lot of the recommendations that came out of an energy audit report, they could save around $1,400 a year for a smaller league. However, that being said, there's a pretty sizable investment that would go into getting your bills down to this. But that would also amount to 24 tons of CO2, or taking 5 cars off the road, or the amount of carbon that a tree would actually sequester over about 10 years, and that's a mature tree. But there are also all sorts of other co-benefits that don't have to do with money or the environment. There's also comfort. I think we've all been in a lot of older buildings, where you're there on a very cold day in the winter and it's not a very comfortable place to be, or conversely in the summer because the lack of insulation in the walls and the leaky windows make it or maybe, you know, the frost has built up on the inside of the windows. But there's also the increased ability to rent the hall. Energy efficiency upgrades are really just basic building maintenance when you think about it. You know, adding insulation, putting in new windows, things like that are actually just part of a regular renovation regime that you would be doing anyways. But in this case, when you do that, it actually increases your ability to make revenue from your hall because you've done some of those renovations. There's branding. I've heard of a league, one of the leagues that is in a position similar to Rocky's, where they're, you know, net zero or carbon neutral. They've been using it to brand things, and they've had people want to get married and stuff there. Yes, because it's a carbon neutral wedding. So again, you can use it as a tool to get people to rent the hall even more, or just to brand your league as a, you know, a place that people want to be because you're doing really interesting things, and you're sort of ahead of the curve.
Look, I have to brag at this point. So in Riverdale, you can do a carbon neutral wedding. Not only that, but we have LED lighting in our patio that is programmable, so we can match the color of the bride's bridal.
So there you go.
And you can take total content.
Yes, yeah, you can put some cans on the back of a Pogo. We're also seeing leagues that have started to use their sustainability portfolio as a recruitment or retention tool. Obviously, not everyone in your neighborhood is going to have a kid, you know, that is playing hockey or soccer, but they may be interested in trying to get involved in their community for all sorts of different reasons. Sustainability has been a really interesting one for some leagues in terms of getting new board members, getting new committee members, and just getting more people in the neighborhood signed on to do all of the different tasks that a league actually has to do, which, as all of you know, are a lot. So we're really encouraging people to actually make a sustainability plan. That being said, the sustainability plan doesn't have to be something separate from the other plans that your league makes. So if you guys already do a yearly strategic planning workshop, and where, you know, you come out of that with the things that you want to do in the year, the projects that sort of float to the top, sustainability could just be another sort of module in that you know, carefully craft some questions about and get the board to think about at that point in time. However, it could be much larger in scope too. Prior to moving to Edmonton, I'm originally from Winnipeg, and for the 3 years before I moved here to Edmonton, I actually worked for an inner city community organization as their greening and environment coordinator. So it was a little bit different from a community league. It had more resources. We had about 5 staff people, but my job was just to do environmental projects. So it wasn't just for our community associations building in our own operations, it was for the neighborhood as a whole. And a lot of leagues have started, like obviously you can see in Riverdale, they've taken their mandate beyond just their own league facility and their own programming into trying to influence their own neighborhood. But I would say, you know, starting with your own building and your own operations is a really great place to start, and then maybe sort of working into programs that actually touch your neighbors. So that's what we did in Winnipeg. We brought, I think it was about 100 community members came to our planning session to create our 5-year neighborhood green plan. We did we brought maps out. We had all sorts of discussions. People talked about things that weren't working in the neighborhood or things where they wanted to see things, and we identified those geographically. And then in the end, we took some time to actually think about what our priorities were, and we did a little voting exercise where people put their top 3 projects on a piece of paper, and we sort of put those together in the plan, that those were the things that floated to the top, and that we would work on some of the other ideas over the rest of the year. But at the core of what we did, and I think this has been mentioned twice already, so it's good, is we really undertook a bit of a visioning exercise of where we wanted our neighborhood to be in 5 years and in 10 years, pinpointed on what we wanted the environment in our neighborhood to look like.
So in this case, we weren't just talking about issues around energy and climate change. We were talking about parks and community garden and biodiversity, lots of different topics. But the one thing that I thought was really nice about that plan that we set in our neighborhood is we chose to really be brave. We put some goals in it that we knew were not things we were going to be able to achieve right away, but that they were really long-term future goals, but things to kind of keep us excited and motivated. And you've heard about some of them tonight. So Rockies League is carbon neutral. Evansdale Community League uses the term net zero for their electricity, not for their natural gas. And just maybe to unpack that a bit, if someone says that a building is net zero, it means that it actually produces all of the energy that it needs over the course of a year. So at some points it's going to be producing more than it needs and feeding that back into the grid. And then at other points, like right now in the evening when your solar system wouldn't be generating, you'd be taking it back from the grid. But over the course of the year, that back and forth is going to end up being zero. So it doesn't mean that you don't take any electricity back from the grid, but it also means that you're feeding a whole bunch back at certain points in time. So in the summer, for instance, you're going to generate a lot and put a lot into the grid. And in the winter, when there's not much sun, you're going to be pulling a lot more from the grid. So again, that concept of over a year is really important. And so again, so Evansdale has that with their electricity, but not with their natural gas. In Edmonton, we have the most amount of net zero homes of any municipality in Canada. Those homes are actually net zero for their electricity and natural gas. So most of them don't actually even have a natural gas line. They have an electric furnace, and the solar PV that goes on the roof generates enough electricity, and they're super, super insulated. So they actually just don't use a lot of electricity to begin with. So I just thought maybe we should unpack that a little bit just because it's a term that's used a lot, especially here in Edmonton where we have a really strong building community. So I think we talked a little bit about this, but again, if you're deciding that you're going to do that green plan that touches your larger neighborhood, not just your community league operations, some of the things that you might want to consider are not things that you have direct control over either. In those planning exercises in my old neighborhood, people, they were drawing down the streets where they were saying, I think this would make a really good bike lane because it's got quite wide lanes that could have, it's called a road diet when you make it a little bit smaller, and you can still accommodate the same amount of traffic and bike lanes. Or we even had one woman who said, we need a district energy system. There's one really tall high-rise with a school beside it, and then a whole bunch of other large buildings, of which our community association had our office. She said, we need a district energy system there, which is a huge undertaking. Right now, we're actually trying to put district energy systems into the Blatchford development and also one downtown, where a whole bunch of buildings all connect to a small power plant. The U of A actually has a district energy system. It's the biggest one, second biggest one in Canada, actually. So we do have lots of experience with that. But again, this was not something that we had direct control over in our neighborhood, but it was still a really interesting idea. And it served as sort of a platform for some of the advocacy that we could do with different levels of government too. Because again, we know a lot of the leagues in the city have really strong development committees, and that takes up a huge amount of their time. The downtown and all of our leagues, I'd say 50% of their efforts go towards talking about development in their neighborhood and what exactly it's going to look like. So, or it could be identifying where you need better transit service in your neighborhood, where stops are missing, where you think the service is good. Things that would allow you to have a conversation with your city councilor, with people at the city. So again, not just the things that you yourself have control over, but it could be a much larger discussion as well too. So I know the focus of our workshop series is really on energy, but if you're making that plan, some of the other things that you might want to consider are some of the landscaping around your league building, for instance. Do you want to have a permaculture garden? Were you thinking about maybe doing a pesticide-free landscaping or adding things like bee gardens or hotels for solitary bees? We've had some leagues that have started to think about how to make their events more sustainable. Events are a huge part of what any community league does. How do you start having things like reusable plates and stuff always on hand, and a really good dishwasher, and things that make it easier not to have to use disposables after your events? Again, waste management. One of the leagues who took the program last year, they were like, yeah, we'll get an energy audit and we're going to do some solar, but we also want a waste audit. So they went about trying to find someone to actually do a waste audit, to go through their waste stream and see where most of the stuff was coming from.
Waste audit? Okay, get back.
I would say ask one of the master composter recyclers to do it for you as part of their volunteer hours. The city has a program where we train master composter and recycler volunteers, and so they get, I think it's 40 hours of education, and then they have to do a bunch of community service. So this would be a great job for one of them. Or if, yeah, there you go. We've got one in the room. And again, they could also help you do things like set up a composter on site too, and give you all the instructions of how you'd properly manage it. One of the programs, the community association that I worked for in Winnipeg, we didn't have municipal composting like we have here in Edmonton, and we also needed a huge amount of organics to feed into our community gardens. So we started picking up compost by bike from different restaurants. We picked up 20,000 pounds of compost by bike over 3 years. And you know what? It was. And we had 4 community garden sites, and it was not enough compost for those garden sites. You can always be replenishing your soil. So again, there's all sorts of people who, even once you get your committee together, there are all sorts of people you can call upon to really help you get your initiatives off the ground too. Water use is another good one. However, if you do sign up to get an energy audit, and that's something we'll be talking more about in the program, they actually do look at your water use and give you some recommendations there too. But if you don't do one, that's another thing to think about. Rocky touched on this, sustainability education. Even if your league itself is not ready to start undertaking some of these projects for your building or for your neighborhood, you can always start with bringing in different people, like, let's say, a master composter or recycler, to do workshops. You can start writing newsletter articles. And again, we put out a whole bunch of sustainability information from the city in a newsletter. If you want to copy and paste the stuff into your community league newsletter, we're totally okay with that. We just want it to go as far as it possibly can. And then I guess lastly, sustainable transportation. So again, another resource, there's a team called Walkable Edmonton at the city, and they create walking maps for neighborhoods. So I'm pretty sure Old Strathcona already has one. I know Riverdale does. But if you don't have a walking map for your neighborhood, that might be a good start to work with that group to create one. So yeah, again, pass formal motions. And I think my advice on the best place to do this is, I think at your AGM is really the best time to have this conversation, because the annual general meeting is the place where you'll get most of your community out to one of your community league meetings. So you'll have lots of people around. And again, the EFCL can help you sort of start thinking about what that motion could look like. But I think the easiest one that we've seen thus far is people asking to get that sustainability director firstly. Then once you have that in place, then it's time to start thinking about this whole planning process, and then getting a motion to actually create a sustainability plan or to add it to that strategic planning exercise that you do every year. But if you pass that motion at your meeting, I also encourage you to create something in the motion where you're actually going to report back on what you said you would do over the course of a year at the AGM next year. It's a good way to keep people motivated. If you're committee knows, okay, so at the next AGM, we're going to have a little spot on the meeting agenda, and we're going to have to talk to people about what it is that we've done over the year. And even if it is, we put out a call for members, and we got together and we started addressing just 3 little projects. Maybe it's like what Rocky's group did first. You're going to change out all the light bulbs in your facilities to LEDs. Whatever it is, or you're going to write, 2 newsletter articles over the years. I thought I would talk about this one as a bit of an example. I was on the board of the Oliver Community League at the time that this happened. And again, this is one of those projects that wasn't necessarily something that the league could have direct control over. But the Oliver Community League was really interested in seeing more cycling infrastructure going into our neighborhoods. So what we decided to do is we got together with a few other cycling groups, and we actually created a pop-up bike lane where you can see all the pylons on the side. And we got permission from the city to do this, but we thought, you know what, let's just try it out and see if it actually works first. So we put all the pylons down for one day, and people were encouraged to come out and try it. We had no idea that this many people would come out to try it, as you can see in the photo. So again, with that idea of starting small, there's always little ways to test and prototype whether things are going to work or not, or whether or not they're going to be received positively. And again, the league wasn't entirely, we had heard feedback from residents that they wanted more cycling infrastructure, but we weren't entirely sure how this event was going to go, and it went really well. In the end, the city actually ended up using this tactic for the bike lane, I think it's on 83rd Ave, as a bit of a test too. So they did the same thing. They set up the pylons just to see some of the practical issues of how this was or wasn't going to work. So sometimes the things that you do in your neighborhood are also going to inspire a whole lot of change down the line too, which is really interesting. So here are some of the roles that we kind of brainstormed that a sustainability director can have. I'm sorry this is so small. I should have put this onto 2 slides. But we were saying they could manage all matters related to the sustainability activities of the league, including speaker series, sustainability workshops and programs, or projects or initiatives that the league decides to undertake. Part of their role could be ensuring that documentation is in place for things like audits, quotes, picking qualified speakers for events, and also, again, being a bit of a liaison with your community recreation coordinator. And one thing that's happened just recently, which is a really nice development for us, is we're actually getting a community recreation coordinator to be on the steering committee for the Green Leagues program too, and their job will be to take all of the information about what we're doing in Green Leagues and let all of the community recreation coordinators know about it so that they're all informed and ready to help people. Does everyone know what the CRC is and what their role is? So there's a network of them spread out across the city, and they help community leagues and other nonprofit organizations with their projects, but they're also a liaison between the city and community groups where they really relay information about what the city is up to back to those community groups. And so I just did a time check, and I'm sorry, I've gone a little bit over time. We were going to break out into groups, and we're going to write some of these down and report back, but we do have a bit of a smaller group, so maybe we could just have a bit of a chat about what you guys think are some of the opportunities and challenges for your organization or for your neighborhood, what some of the projects you're thinking about are, and then again, this last one, I don't want to miss out on it because it gives us a sense of what you guys need assistance with. So yeah, what do you need help with? Where are you stuck?
This is interesting. I think there's a cultural thing with community leagues. They've been around since 1917. Mm-hmm. Their mandates traditionally been in the sports and recreation, hockey, soccer, having functions at the hall, renting the hall. So, and even though I'm the president, I mean, I'm guilty of just getting into that program thinking and not being able to step back far enough to look at a strategic plan. So this evening's been very helpful. But it's just I think the Federation and the individual community leagues, there's a cultural shift to start thinking strategically. And somebody said earlier, kids are so caught up with the parking issues, infill housing, it's silos, and to be able to step back from that is a huge, huge cultural shift. The people who are traditionally in these roles as the social director and stuff like that, I'm not making sure I have the language to talk about strategic planning with my board.
No, you're right. How do we?
Yearly planning
Yeah.
exercise. Let's talk about what we want to do for the year, and then, but again, I still think you need to move back a bit more and be like, what do we want our neighborhood to be like? There's no other group in your geographical neighborhood that has that same role that you do.
And I think that the conversation we've had this evening about talking about sustainability rather than climate change has been really helpful. I think all the community leagues have small budgets. They've got a volunteer base that's probably stretched, and just any of those conversations that talk about sustainability, the dealing with abundance and stuff like that are really helpful to just get stuff happening. And we've got a community garden, just the light went on. I was like, yeah, that's time. It's in another location, not near the hall, but all these things fit together. That's been really helpful this evening.
Yes, I think, and also there are so many, I hate to say this, but we have new drivers too, and the creation of a lot of the grant programs that exist now are another driver that if you come to the last session, we'll talk about that a little bit more too, about, there was only CLIP or CFAP available to you in the past to do facilities upgrades. Now we're going to talk to you about a whole bunch of other things that exist now too. They happen to be tied to sustainability, but they're going to help you achieve your other goals of hall renewal and things like that too. So again, there are different ways to help convince people to come down this journey with us too.
It might be beneficial to have the director, the board director at that meeting, like the person who's kind of like the main person, to see what kind of funding we have, which then can maybe facilitate some more of a conversation around the building renewal and sustainability.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you guys to invite your facilities directors and treasurers and people to the next 3 workshops, because they're a lot more technical and we're really getting into a totally different sort of information than what we talked about tonight, but it might be right up their alley when we're talking about, because we're going to go over the basics of, what is energy efficiency, what's included in it, but also some more behavior-based stuff about more what's like energy management. How are you actually using energy? Not just retrofits that need to be done to your facility, but, do you have a programmable thermostat? Do you have motion sensors, like the little tiny things that could be done?
Yeah, having met with Robyn and Charlotte, I recognize how very timely and rich this program is, and I think I think the program has reached maturity to the point that we're going to be able to start connecting with each other as leagues, and then things are really going to take off, and so yeah.
This is my contact information. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about anything. My job is to talk to the public about these issues for sure.
Yeah, and just to follow up what Robyn said, same with me. I'm here to help you institute these projects or help you overcome the obstacles that you're facing, or connect you with people who face similar ones, or experts, anything that you need in order to get you to the next step. So that's kind of why this program was created, why my position was created, is to be that person to connect with the resources and to provide what the community leagues need.